Okay. Welcome to session number 4 of our Moving Forward with Thesis group. And today we are going to talk about research questions. You can do it, Mark. I give you the address in some minutes. Okay, today we have 2 quotes. The first one summarizes the nature of research that is based on curiosity, but one that is purposeful and systematic, and that is expressed through questioning. And as the other one says, we make the appropriate questions, or we have to make appropriate questions to get knowledge. Therefore, learning how to formulate research questions is an essential step to conduct studies. This is the agenda for this session. And as I said in the other group, we're just in the middle of our work, okay? Yeah, that one, Mark. That's the one. Send it to me there. Okay, and as usual, the first point of the agenda is to talk about the exercise that was given to you the previous week. However, in this occasion, I want to present an example of my feedback about the task of writing an outline to develop the literature review. As you can infer from the feedback, there were different interpretations of the task. And I want to dissect the task or the exercise so you can have a good idea of what should have been done in each part. The first part was to create an outline. It could also be a concept map or a mind map of how you would develop your literature review. This is different from presenting the headings and subheadings included in the table of contents for the second chapter of your thesis or dissertation. Why? Because the latter is the final product of a long set of attempts, while the former is the rough input that requires the evaluation of its coherence, and is that process of evaluation and refinement that interests us in this group. So you need to internalize how to refine a rough draft so you will be able to apply it to context outside our group. So that's why just presented the table of contents was not enough for the exercise, because the idea is that you begin with the first ideas about what you want to include in the chapter. The second task was a reflection upon the coherence of the outline or the concept map or the mind map. The reason to ask that is a helpfulness to realize how your mind works and how much you have understood the concepts discussed. When you speak up your evaluation of what you have written, you can determine strengths and gaps in your thinking. Sorry. And the last task was to reflect upon your feelings towards what you were asked to do. That makes you aware of your perception of the task and their impact on your attitude towards learning. Being conscious of those things makes you a more proactive and confident learner. This is a point that we can discuss during the question and answer time. But the focus of today is the research question of a study. Let's see what it is. This is the concept, the most straightforward concept of what a research question is, and it clarifies what your research study tries to achieve because it gathers the necessary information to understand the problem or solve the problem. And since it defines what you want to answer or test, it is a key element to the whole research process. You have to take that into account when you need to decide what to read, what methods should be used in order to answer it, what data should be gathered, and how to analyze and interpret it. And also, your findings must be presented in a way that the answer to the research question is clear. Therefore, be consistent in the wording of the research question throughout the whole research process, especially when writing the dissertation or report. As this slide states, research questions are a key element of conducting a research study. But before discussing them, let's see 3 concepts that you need to have clear. There are 3 related concepts: topic, research problem, and research question. They go from general to specific, since topic refers to the area that interests you. Within that general area, you identify situations that are not working properly, and then you ask questions whose answers will provide the necessary and valid information to understand the problem better or propose a solution to it. This slide presents a diagram that illustrates the process to go from topic to research question. It is presented in a linear sequence, but it doesn't always happen in that way, and you may find useful to adapt the process to your own cognitive style. What really matters is that you identify, choose, and evaluate the involved elements so the result can be as appropriate and useful to gather much valid information as possible. And it's time to know what characterizes a good research question. Such knowledge let us not only perform a better formulation of them, but also evaluate the product of that process. And these are the elements that are usually present in a good research question. However, I have to point out that not all these elements have to be included in each research question. It depends on the nature of what needs to be answered. For instance, a research question that intends to describe a current situation that is a study may focus on the what, who, when, and where that are involved in it. But a research question that is focused on exploring a situation may include the first 4 interrogatives, but also the how to know the process associated, while a question that intends to explain will include the why of that situation. So the nature of what you intend to do in order to answer the question should be explicit, or it at least can be inferred easily. For example, describe implies to get a picture of what is going on, which is usually the absence of sufficient information. Explore implies no information about the exact scope of what you will work with. Unexpected information is a possible outcome. because you don't know all the information needed. Compare is focused on establishing differences and similarities among individuals or groups. And explain begins with a description that includes relationship, especially causation among variables. So, what you intend to do defines the way you formulate your research questions. And broadly speaking, these are the four most common FOSSI of research questions: describe, explore, compare, and explain. Considering the FOSSI of research question, we can have scripts to follow when formulating them. I hope this helps you write better research questions. Let's see each one of them. This is the script to write a research question for describing. So, description of the elements of the problem implies the building of a clear and comprehensive picture of the situation in terms of what we think should be studied. The example, if you can see, the script is what or how, and then you write down the unknown element, and then the central phenomenon that you are studying, and then the participants in that study, and finally the research site or the period of time of that. So the example that will be presented in the next slide refer to quantitative and qualitative research questions. It is important to point out that the research method that should be used derive from the research question, not the other way around. In other words, first, you formulate the question, what you want to answer or test, and then you choose the research method that lets answer the question in a valid way. Here you have some examples of research questions to describe the elements of a problem. Look that what this question intends is to describe the elements as involved in the problem. And this is a script to write a research question for exploring. So exploration of the elements of the problem implies that you describe them, but also go beyond that in the sense that you do not know the whole set of elements that may emerge and need that information to fill up your gap of information. That's why you say what, include the unknown element, the central phenomenon, the participant, the research site, or the period of time. These examples illustrate research questions intended to explore what the elements of a problem are. Look, what strategies are used to? What are the opinions of explorers? If you go this, is what and the unknown element. What strategies? That's the unknown element. What are the opinions? That's the unknown element. And it's time to talk about a script to write a research question for comparing. Comparison of elements of the problem implies differences and similarities between or among individuals or groups. That's why the script says what are the differences between the central phenomenon, and you include the participant, the research site, and the period of time. Here you have example of research questions that look for similarities and differences. What are the differences in, or what is the differences in attitude? Okay, you are looking for similarities and differences. And this is the script to write a research question for explaining. explanation of the elements of the problem begins with the description, because you need to know what the elements are, but includes relationships among variables, especially ones of causation. It means that not always you are asking for causes, because you can be asking for relationships. And then when you know that there are relationships, is when you ask about cause and effect. This kind of research question is intended to get information about how things function, how they relate to each other, or the reasons to act in a specific way. Here you have some examples of research questions formulated to get information that explain the identified problem. That is, what is the relationship between a teaching strategy and the scores in a test? Or why do first-year British policemen leave the force? Okay, so you are looking for explanations. Now, once you have formulated your research questions, it is advisable to evaluate them in terms of how well they reflect the characteristics of good research questions. You know that DoctoralNet provides you with an automation to do that. And these are the following, the criteria to evaluate a research question. A research question should satisfy these criteria. They are on the automation, but I want you to talk about them in this webinar. So the first thing is you need to answer if the question is clearly and concisely stated. Then the second one, does it include what is studied, is what you are interested in knowing is explicit. It has to be explicit what you want to study. It also has to have explicit the units. That could be people, groups, events, settings, etc., that are the focus of your study. They have to be stated there. Then it says, is it clear what location is associated to it? Because the physical context in which the study is developed must be explicitly stated. Then the period of time that the study phenomenon elapses or in which it occurs should be explicitly identified. This element may not be present depending on the goal of the study. You can have the time in some questions, but not in another one, dependence of them. Okay. Then if the focus of the research question is the description of a process or its extension or frequency, the study process or intensity or extension should be clearly stated. Okay. And then if the focus of the research study is the explanation of why a phenomenon occurs, the nature of the causes you look for should be clearly stated. Then the nature of what you want to do in order to answer the question should be explicit, or at least can be inferred easily. So that's why the question says, does it state what is intended to do? And then, is it possible to know what would take to answer it? Are you sure that participant can answer that question? And I mean, not that the participant can answer it, but the answer that you get through the answers of participant are enough to answer the question, the research question that you have formulated. Your research question should be significant for your field of study, the more interested it is for people, the more possibilities exist your findings may be taken into account. Then your research question should be possible in terms of time, costs, skills, require information, access to it, etc. It should also have significant implications to the related social and academic context that may imply important changes. And you have also to know if it is a hot question this day, is it possible to generate new directions to research? That's why you have to ask, is it timely? And it should also maintain ethical standards in relation to participants, data, and research. And finally, you will spend 2 or more years working with a formulated research question. Therefore, you should be sure it interests you as much as to work with it every week and think of it every day. So these are the criteria that you use to evaluate your research question. And you can go to Doctoral.net, you have there the automation, and you just have to tick if your research question fulfill each one of these criteria. And it's time to talk about what mistakes students usually do related to research question. And these are some of the most common mistakes supervisors and coaches find in research question. Biased questions are the kind of question that is worded in such a way that the answer could only be the one the researcher expects. For example, how bad is the teaching strategy applied in X school to teach minorities? So there is a bias there because the only answer that the researcher is expecting is that the strategies are bad. So instead of asking that, the researcher should have formulated a question like this. How is the teaching strategy used in X school to teach minority perceived? And then you open the possibility of having that some people think that that strategies are bad while others think that strategies are good. When it says confusing wording refers to use ambiguous words or sentence structures that do not provide a clear idea of what you are asking or are beyond the comprehension of your target respondents. So your research question should reflect the characteristics of the target population, and also it should be worded in such a way that your supervisor, your coach, or any reader can say, this is what this person is interested in answering or testing. Then when you include 2 or more questions in your research question, you cannot get one answer to it, but will be obliged to provide as many answers as questions are included. Therefore, you have more than one research question. For example, what teaching strategy improves students' achievement in the S test, and what hinders their satisfaction? There you have 2 questions. What will be the answer to that research question? Will it be about the achievement in the test? Would it be about the hinders in the satisfaction? Why don't you write just 2 different research questions, and the answers will be well focused on those questions. The dichotomous questions is a terrible word to say. The dichotomous questions are the ones with yes or no questions. and they are not usually used in thesis and dissertation due to the fact that they narrow the scope of possible answer. You only have positive or negative answer, and that close the door to unexpected answers. And finally, irrelevant questions are those that who do not look for information that expand current knowledge or are not based on strong theories. In other words, they are questions that do not give new knowledge to the state of the art of the topic. Okay, and of course, the last one is in fact that sometimes you write down too many research questions, and sometimes you write down too few research questions. And the criterion to know how many questions you need is how many elements are involved in your problem and how much information you need in order to have a good input to address the problem, to understand the problem better, or to provide or propose a solution to the problem. So this is the advanced idea for today. Research question must be appropriate to find the needed information to address the research problem. Not more, nor less, okay? You have to gather the necessary and also the valid information to either understand the problem better or propose a solution to it. And it's time to question and answers. Let's see. Is everything so clear that you don't have answers? Oh yeah, I think those scripts are helpful. In fact, yeah, I had to research or search for a lot of information, reflect upon them, and then created those scripts. And I think that they are good to guide you and to put your mind on the right track. Because if we go back and check them, for instance, look at this one, which is when you needed to formulate a research question for explaining. So you say what element or why that element and the central phenomenon that you are studying and the participants at the research site or the period of time. So when you write down something like this, what is the relationship? Okay, that's what you are looking for. That's the phenomenon that you are dealing with, the unknown element of that central phenomenon. What are the relationship between the teaching strategy and the scores high school student? Or when you say, why do that? Why? Because you are looking for an explanation. So this first year British policeman leave the force. Okay. So, and when you have something like this, what is the differences, or what are the differences between the phenomenon that you are studying? So you say, what are the differences in summarizing skills? There you have the comparison. What are the differences? Then the central phenomenon, summarizing skills. What are the participants? Baby boomers and millennials. It's great. And Mark says, I'm staring at the scripts, and I think if you look at my email, things will make more sense. What I gave you before was only part of the proposal, not the dissertation. I guess so. Don't worry. What is important is that everything is clear enough to be interpreted in the way that you expect readers to interpret it. Okay? If it is not the case, if your wording does not reflect exactly what you are thinking, then you have a problem, because different readers will or may understand the content in different ways, and that's not what you're looking for in a dissertation. Okay, so this is what scripts try to do, for instance, with exploring, okay, because you are looking for elements that are not of what you are not completely sure that you have. So when you say what strategies, it's because you are looking for something, you are exploring, looking for something that you don't know if it is present or not, or what are the opinions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Any other question? Point to share. These mistakes are very, very important to grasp, okay? Because it is very common that students write biased questions, and they don't know even that they are biased. That's why I will repeat next year a webinar about biases in research. Annalise says, I need to reconsider my research question. Good, that's good. Mm-hmm. And you are going to, I'm going to help you with that, with the exercise that I have designed for today. Just in some minutes, I put it there. Stephanie says, I think it takes a lot of reflection to really nail down a clear research question. Moving too quickly will expand. Yeah, of course. That's absolutely true. You need to reflect upon what? You need to reflect upon the problem and also upon the purpose of your research study. So you say, okay, I have this problem. What are the elements involved in this problem? Do I know them all? Because if I know them all, I don't need, for instance, a question like this ones. Because I know all the elements that are involved. But I'm sure that I know all those elements. If not, I have to explore. And these are the kind of question that I should ask. Okay? And if you know all the, you are sure that you know all the elements, no problem with that. But then what do you intend to do? Do you want to compare? Do you need information about similarities and differences? Then I write this. But if I'm interested in knowing, or looking for an explanation to the problem, then I need research questions that follow this model, okay? And that is a very important point, okay? Analyst says, I just realized this question is not clear. Let's see. Everybody, let's read that question. Is there a specific pattern across cultures and gender with regard to self-definition when comparing retrospective autobiographical memories within the South African context? Yeah, you got it. you should have one for culture and one for gender. So you can then make, you can get to conclusions about that, because it is probable that there is a specific pattern across culture, but not across gender, or the other way around. And then it's true. And the question should be worded in a clearer way, right? It's true. Yeah, that one is dichotomous. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessary to do that, because you can write down 2 research questions. And once you know if there are a specific pattern across culture and if there are specific patterns across gender, you can also try to do and see what of those patterns are present both across culture and across gender. So that's something that you can infer from data, okay? And you can write out a 3rd research question if it is important for you to connect both things in a different way. Okay? Okay. Let's check the exercise. Sorry. Here you have the exercise for today. It is focused on writing and evaluating research questions. Therefore, write the questions, go to the corresponding automation at Doctoral.net, and write the result that the program will give you. Finally, reflect upon the process of writing those questions and how satisfied you are with them. And please feel free to ask any question you may have about the exercise. Primary and secondary questions are just separate questions. What is the best to do? Well, you use primary and secondary questions, or what is also known as research question and sub-questions, when the sub-questions are necessary to answer the primary question. If both have both are at the same level of importance and at the same level of importance of the elements, they should be separate questions. Okay? But suppose that you have a question that is general, it's a general question, and you need to formulate other questions in order to be able to answer the general one. Then you have general and specific questions, or question and sub-questions, or primary and secondary questions. Okay? Suppose, let me think a little about your question and say, suppose, is there a specific, you know what? Are you sure that there are patterns across culture according to the literature, or you are just interested in knowing if there is a specific one? Is 5 research questions too much or too many? Oh, that depends on that depends on the problem. How many elements are involved in the problem? So there are patterns, and those patterns, or the existence of patterns has been proved in different cultures. What you want to know is what specific patterns are there. Is that correct? You are sure that there will be patterns, because the literature says that patterns occur in all culture. Is that true, what I'm saying? Because if you are sure that there are specific patterns, because there are patterns, okay, I'm correct. Okay, therefore, then this question, instead of being, is there a specific pattern, should be, what specific patterns exist across culture? Because you are saying that there must be patterns there, because there are patterns on all culture, and those cultures and South Africa should have patterns. What you don't know is what specific patterns exist. Okay, so you will be doing a question that is related to this one, exploring what patterns. Because you know that there must be patterns. What you don't know is what patterns are. Okay. All right. That's good. So that's what I intended, Stephanie, that could be helpful for the development of your research question, because that's the idea, that you know exactly what you are intended to do, so you can choose the best pattern, the best script to develop your research question. And writing research questions, you say, how many research questions should I have? Well, you need to have the questions that can help you gather information about all the elements and relationship that you are interested in. Okay. For instance, Annalene is interested in patterns across culture and patterns across gender that can be identified in autobiographical memories within the South African context. Okay, so how many research questions she needs? Well, she needs one question for the cultures, for the patterns across culture, one question for the patterns across gender, and it says, when comparing retrospective autobiographical memories. And then perhaps she needs another question in order to address that part of the autobiographical memories. Well, that providing that she write a better wording for that research question. Okay, Mark says, I guess that you are asking, that could be a research question. When is it all right to lie in a business contract? That could be a research question if the problem that you are stating includes that possibility. I mean, if lying in a business or the appropriateness of lying in a business contract is included in the problem. When is it all right to not disclose a third party to the other party? Yeah. Well, everything goes back again, Mark, to the problem statement. Okay. If your problem statement states the appropriateness of these things, then you can ask questions about those things. If your problem statement does not include that, and is like we said in the previous group, when we're discussing this at the previous group, your problem statement is focused on trying to determine or trying to test if artificial intelligence is enough to address all the elements involved in a contract negotiation. If that is the problem, then these are not good, and these are not good questions for that problem, because these questions did not refer to the role of artificial intelligence within the contract negotiation. These questions refer to another problem, which could be in terms of, for instance, how ethical contract negotiation is within X context. If that is the problem, if the problem is related to ethical elements in a contract negotiation, then those questions that you are writing down may be there. But if the problem is related to the ability of artificial intelligence to handle all the variables involved in a negotiation, those questions do not refer to that. Yeah, so the question could not be, are false negotiations unethical? Because that's not the point. The point is, if artificial intelligence is able to detect false negotiations, that's another thing, you see? That's a completely different thing. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that could be. But the thing is that I want you to grasp the idea that what defines the research question is the problem and the elements, the variables involved in the problem. So if the problem is focused on artificial intelligence ability to detect unethical conducts in a contract negotiation, then the research question should be addressed on those terms, not on term if are false negotiation unethical or when it's all right or not to discuss a third party, but if the artificial intelligence is capable of detect that. Okay, go, Stephanie. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, but the point is not that those things, of course, you have to prove that those things happen in a contract negotiation. And you will use literature review, and you will use especially previous research study to demonstrate that those things are part of business negotiation. But you are interested in knowing, or or in testing if artificial intelligence is capable of detect them. And if it is not the case, then I suppose that you will propose that people can still be used together with artificial intelligence in that kind of negotiation. And if the research shows that it is possible for artificial intelligence to do that, then you have to say, okay, it's perfect in that way. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. I did everything, yeah, already. And then I continue here, don't worry. Let me check if I did everything. Yes, I did. Oh, well, these are the next things that are at DoctoralNet, the next webinars, and part of what will be available soon, which is an app for using in your phone, okay? So I'm going to stop the recording now and we can continue.